Okay, today we're going to start looking at dividing whole numbers with fractions and then dividing fractions by whole numbers. Okay, so we're just going to focus on modeling. We're not going to talk about the procedure to do it. We're just going to use pictures for today. So bear with me. Tomorrow we'll start looking at what's the process, what's the math way, step 1, step 2, step 3. For today, we're just looking at pictures. So we're going to start with number 1, and number 1 is the expression 2 divided by half. So when we look at this model, we have two things because we're starting with 2. We have our 2 squares, and what we're going to do is we're going to divide each of them in half. So let's take our little thing here. We're going to cut this one in half as best as I can and cut that one in half. Okay, so now that they're both cut in half, what do we have? Well, when they're both cut in half, how many pieces do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, back to my pen, 2, 3, and 4 pieces. So when we take two whole things and we divide them in half, we're left with 4 pieces. Wow. That looks like a lot like what happens when we do 2 times 2. Okay, but that is the answer, 4 pieces. When we take two things, we cut in half, what do we get? We get 4 pieces. Let's look at another modeled example. Okay, I'm starting with 3 whole things. So I'm starting with 3. I'm going to divide them into 1/6. So I'm going to divide each of the 3 things into 6 pieces. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces there. Okay, so I have 3 things divided into 6 pieces. How many pieces do I end up with? I end up with 8. Okay, so I end up with 18 pieces. Once again, that looks a lot like taking 3 times 6 in order to get 18 pieces. So 3 things divided into 6 is 18 sixths or 18 pieces. Okay, we'll keep going. Maybe we'll see a pattern emerging in here at some point. Okay, so our next section is 2 whole things divided into fifths. So I'm going to cut the first one into fifths. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 pieces there. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces there. So how many pieces do I end up with? I end up with 10 pieces. Once again, looks like, sounds like multiplication. Kind of strange. Whenever I cut something into fractional pieces and I count up how many pieces I made, it really starts to look like a multiplication problem. Okay, let's look at number 4. I have 3 things. I'm going to cut it into 7 pieces. Each one's going to be in 7 pieces. So my pen's not working. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 pieces on that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know these aren't perfect, guys, but 7 pieces on that one. My marker is really giving me problems today. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 lines gives me 6 lines, gives me 7 pieces. So I have 7 in this square, 7 pieces in this square, and 7 pieces in that square. When I put them all together, I end up with 21 pieces. Looks like 3 times 7. Wow, I hope you're seeing a pattern emerging here. So before I even do this one, I wonder what the answer is. So if I take 6 things and I divide each one into thirds, how many pieces am I going to end up with? I'm going to end up with 6 times 3. Okay, so let's check. Okay, so if I take each one, divide it into thirds, there's 3 pieces, 3 pieces, 3 pieces, 3 pieces, 3 pieces, 3 pieces. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 pieces. Okay, once again, looks a lot like multiplication. So now we have 5. We're going to cut each one into fourths, or 1/4. So I'm going to cut each one into 4 pieces. This time I'm going to cut it a little bit differently just to have a little fun here. I'm going to change colors just because I can. Okay, so each one into fourths. So there's 1. This time 2 lines, maybe, makes 4 pieces. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. So I'm going to keep cutting them. Okay, I'm taking 5 things, cutting them into fourths, or 4 pieces each. So that ends up being 20, or 5 things, 4 pieces each equals 20. So it seems like when I'm dividing with fractions, I'm actually doing some multiplication. I wonder what will happen if we start with the fraction first. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so here's our next example. Okay, so I'm starting with our fraction first, and I'm actually going to cut the fraction this time. Okay, so I have a picture of a whole. It is cut into 5 pieces, and one of those 5 pieces is shaded, so that represents 1/5. So now what I need to do is I need to cut the whole thing, particularly the 5th, into 3 pieces. So I'm going to cut this into 3 pieces. So there's 1 the whole way across, and 2. So now this 1/5 right here, this 1/5 right here is cut into 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3 pieces. So when I look at what one part of that is right here. So when I took 1/5 and cut it into 3 pieces, one of those pieces is 1 out of, how many pieces did I end up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I took 1/5, divided it evenly into 3 pieces, which made 15 total pieces out of my fifths, and one of those is 1/15. Okay, cutting into thirds, one part of that is 1/15. That doesn't look so much like multiplication. I don't know though, but I kind of do see some patterns, like 5 times 3 is 15, and that's my denominator. Maybe that kind of makes sense. I don't know. Let's look and see if that kind of follows through the rest of it. Okay, so in number 2 over here, I have 1/4. Okay, so we have our whole thing divided into fourths. One of them is shaded, and we're going to divide that into 6 pieces. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, so I'm going to start by cutting it in half. Okay, so now it's 2 pieces, and I'm going to cut each half again. Okay, so there we have 1, 2, 3 pieces, 4, 5, and 6. So let's just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I cut it into 6 pieces. So when I take 1/4 and I cut it into 6 pieces, I end up with this much as one of them. So 1/4 cut into 6, or 6, ends up with this part right here. That's 1 out of the whole thing. So I ended up making, oh my, 4 rows of 6, which is 24 total pieces. And when I found out what 1/4 divided by 6 is, that 6 ends up being 1 piece out of 24. Once again, I do kind of see some multiplication. 4 times 6 is the denominator. I don't know. Let's keep checking. Let's do another one. Okay, so I have half. I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. Fourths. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I do that, I end up with 8 pieces. And looking at what one of those pieces is, I end up with 1/8. So I took half. I found out what a part of it is after it's cut into 4, and it's 1 out of 8 pieces. Once again, I see 2 times 4 is the denominator. It seems like this is a pattern, that if I multiply my denominators, then if I multiply my denominator of my fraction times the whole number, I'm getting the new denominator. I don't know. Seems a little interesting, like something I should probably pay attention to. So I'm going to make a guess that right now the denominator here is 6, because of 3 times 2. But let's just wait and see. So I have 1/3. So I have 1/3 shaded, 1 out of 3 pieces. I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces. So cutting it into 2 pieces, oh, look at that. I created 6 pieces. Okay, so this is out of 6. So when I take 1/3 and cut it into 2 pieces, I end up with, this is one part of it. So 1/6 of the whole thing is what's created when you cut it in half. If I cut 1/3 into 2 pieces or cut it in half, I ended up with 1 out of 6 pieces. Boy, this really looks like it's going to be a pattern I'm going to follow through. So let's check this out. Okay, so right away I'm going to say the denominator is 42 because 6 times 7 is 42. Okay, so I have 1/6 shaded in, and I'm going to cut that into 7 pieces. So, oh, Cortana, go away. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I have to cut something else. Okay, we'll make this one a little skinnier. Okay, there's 7 pieces. Okay, well, if I have 6 rows of 7, I have 42. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. 6 times 7 is 42. So if I take 1/6, this whole shaded in part, and I cut it into 7ths, this part right here is what I make, and that's 1 out of 42. Okay, now let's look at this next one. I have 1/7 divided by 5. I'm going to say it's going to end up being 35ths. So I have 1/7. I'm going to cut it into 5 parts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 7 going across, 5 going down. Yep, that's 35 parts. And if I'm going to cut that 1/7 into 5ths or 5 parts, one of those is 1 out of the 35. Now, I'm going to make my own little picture here. Okay, because so far all of these have been 1 something divided by a whole number. I wonder what's going to happen if I have like a different numerator than 1. So let me try one of these out, okay? I'm going to make a little shape here. Okay, and my problem is going to be, let's do 2/3. Yeah, 2/3 divided, come on, 2/3 divided by, let's divide it by 5. Okay, and see what happens. Now, right away, I'm going to imagine, I'm going to follow through on the pattern that the denominator is going to be 15 for 3 times 5. We'll wait and see. Okay, so I need to make 2/3. Okay, so I have, I'm going to make 2/3 here. There's 1, 2/3. Okay, weird line there, but that's okay. Okay, and I'm going to shade in 2/3. So squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Now I'm going to take those 2/3 and I'm going to cut them into 5ths or 5 equal parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. Okay, so 2/3 divided into 5ths. Well, what do I end up with? Let me use a different color here. So I end up with 2/3 cut into 5 pieces is 2 out of 15 pieces. So in the red, I end up with 2 out of 15. Well, that probably led you some questions and some theories about what the process might be here, but don't worry about that for right now. We'll get to that tomorrow. So what you're going to do next is you're going to get this paper and you're going to do some practice. So let me show you the first one really quick. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to grab modeling practice number 1, and you're going to do the questions on it. Here's the first one really quick. So 8 divided in half. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw 8 things. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you're going to cut them in half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you're going to solve. And you're like, oh, if I have 8 things and I cut it in half, I end up with 16. Okay? Then you're going to do a model of 1/7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Shade it in. If you cut it into fourths, you end up with 28 pieces, and one of those is shaded in. Okay, good luck, guys.